In the bustling space station known as Haven's Cross, where hundreds of species coexisted in relative harmony, Tom Miller had earned quite a reputation. Not as a warrior, politician, or merchant, but as someone far more important to many species, a caretaker of young ones. The former kindergarten teacher from Earth had never imagined that his skills would be so valued across the galaxy. His daycare center, Little Stars, occupied a warm, cozy section of the station's residential ring, filled with soft cushions, climbing frames, and toys suitable for youngsters of various species. That morning started like any other, with Tom checking the environmental controls for each habitat zone. The facility could accommodate young ones from both methane and oxygen-breathing species, maintaining perfect conditions in separate areas. He was just finishing his morning routine when the station's communication system chimed. "Mr. Miller?" The voice belonged to station security. "There's someone here to see you." It's a razor claw." Tom's heart skipped a beat. The razor claws were among the most feared species in known space, massive, reptilian creatures with natural armor and, as their name suggested, claws that could tear through reinforced steel. They were apex predators who had evolved into a spacefaring civilization while keeping their fierce nature. The razor claw waiting in the reception area was easily 9 feet tall, with obsidian scales and amber eyes. To Tom's surprise, he could tell from the crest patterns, was cradling something in her arms with surprising gentleness. "You are the human caretaker?" Her voice was a low rumble. "I am Guardian Kral. I seek your services." Tom maintained his professional composure, though his heart was racing. "Yes, I run this facility. How can I help?" Kral carefully unwrapped the bundle in her arms, revealing a baby razor claw, no larger than a human infant. "This is my offspring. She is different. Gentle. Too gentle for our traditional creches. Our young usually establish dominance through combat, but she..." Kral's voice softened with concern. "She tries to play with her clutch mates instead." Tom watched as the baby razor claw blinked at him with curious golden eyes, making a soft chirping sound that reminded him of a bird. This was unprecedented. Razor claws were notorious for their aggressive child-rearing practices, believing that only the strongest deserved to survive. "I have heard stories," Kral continued, "of how humans nurture their young, how you encourage both strength and kindness. Perhaps this is what my little one needs." As Tom looked at the hopeful expression on both mother and child's faces, he knew this could change everything, not just for this family, but for human razor-claw relations as a whole. He smiled warmly and extended his hands. "We would be honored to welcome your daughter to Little Stars." The news spread through Haven's Cross like wildfire. A razor claw had entrusted their child to the human daycare center. Some called it madness, others a sign of weakness, but Tom Miller focused on what he did best, creating a nurturing environment for his newest charge. He named her Rose, after watching her delicate interactions with other children. The name amused Guardian Kral, a soft name for what should have been a fierce warrior. But even she couldn't deny the changes in her daughter after just 1 week at Little Stars. Rose's first day had been challenging. The other children, ranging from floating gas-based beings to small furry creatures, initially kept their distance. The baby razor claw's natural armor and claws, though tiny, were still intimidating. But Tom had a secret weapon: playtime. "Today, we're going to learn about gentle touches," Tom announced to his class, sitting in their respective environmental bubbles. He demonstrated with a soft ball, showing how to roll it instead of throwing it. Rose watched intently, her golden eyes following every movement. To everyone's surprise, she was the first to mimic him perfectly. Her tiny claws, capable of shredding metal, delicately rolled the ball to a young cloudling, a floating child made of colorful gases. The cloudling, after a moment's hesitation, bounced the ball back with a tendril of vapor. The other children watched in fascination. A razor claw, playing instead of fighting? It went against everything their parents had told them about the fierce species. Soon, curiosity overcame fear, and Rose found herself included in their games. Guardian Krall observed these sessions through the facility's viewing windows, her expression unreadable. Tom caught her watching one afternoon as Rose helped a smaller child reach a toy on a high shelf, instead of claiming it for herself as a traditional Razorclaw would. "She is learning weakness," Krall rumbled, but her tone carried more question than accusation. Tom stood beside her, watching the children play. "She's learning strength of a different kind. Look how the others trust her now. In a galaxy full of species who fear Razorclaws, your daughter is building bridges." As if to prove his point, Rose had gathered several children for a group activity. She was showing them how to build a tower with soft blocks, her natural planning abilities making her a natural leader. When the tower fell, instead of getting frustrated, she chirped her musical laugh and started again, encouraging the others to join. "The Council of Elders has taken notice," Krall admitted. "They speak of recalling her to the creche. They fear she will become too human." Tom felt a chill. He had grown attached to Rose, and more importantly, she had become an essential part of his little community. "And what do you think?" Krall watched as her daughter carefully helped a tiny amphibian child place a block. "I think," she said slowly, "that perhaps the council should come see for themselves. See how my daughter leads without force, builds without destroying. Maybe it is time for the Razorclaw way to evolve." As Tom watched Rose orchestrate her miniature construction project, teaching cooperation to beings from across the galaxy, he realized this was becoming something bigger than just childcare. This tiny Razorclaw, with her gentle heart and careful claws, was becoming a symbol of change. And in the background, unnoticed by most, more Razorclaw parents began appearing at the viewing windows, watching with thoughtful eyes. The day the Razorclaw Council arrived at Haven's Cross, the station's gravity seemed heavier than usual. 5 towering figures, their scales gleaming with ceremonial oils, made their way through corridors that suddenly seemed too small. Their destination, Little Star's daycare center. Tom had been preparing for this visit for weeks. He'd considered putting on a special demonstration, but Guardian Krall had advised against it. "Let them see the truth," she had said. "That will be more powerful than any performance." The council members ducked through the reinforced doorway, their ancient eyes taking in the cheerful murals and activity stations. Tom noticed how their claws twitched at the sight of such softness. The head council member, distinguished by elaborate silver markings, spoke first. "We have come to observe the unusual development of young Guardian in training Rose," she announced, her voice like distant thunder. "Show us what you have done to her." Tom stood his ground, though his heart raced. "Rose is in the main play area with her friends. Would you like to observe their natural interactions?" The word "friends" caused several council members to hiss softly, but they followed Tom to the observation window. Inside, Rose was leading what had become her signature activity, cooperative building. But today was different. The children were creating something new. Using blocks, cushions, and various safe materials, they had constructed a replica of Haven's Cross Station. Rose directed the project with natural leadership, helping smaller children reach higher spots and showing amazing patience with a young crystalline who kept accidentally shattering pieces with its diamond-hard hands. "Notice," Tom pointed out quietly, "how she's adapted her natural planning abilities. Razorclaws have always been excellent strategists in battle. Rose applies that same skill to creation instead of destruction." A council member growled, "But where is her warrior spirit? A true Razorclaw dash." He was interrupted by a crash. One section of the station model had collapsed. In traditional Razorclaw culture, this would be cause for fury, perhaps even a dominance challenge. The council leaned forward, watching intently. Rose surveyed the damage, then did something extraordinary. She gathered the children who had been working on that section and began teaching them about structural support. Her claws, precise as surgical tools, demonstrated how to brace the towers properly. Soon, they were rebuilding together, the new section stronger than before. "Impossible," whispered one council member. She showed no aggression, no dominance display. "Yet they all follow her," observed another. "Even species that naturally fear us." The head council member turned to Guardian Krall, who had been silently watching from the doorway. "You were right to bring this to our attention. But not for the reasons we initially thought." She faced Tom, her ancient eyes holding his gaze. "Human, you have not weakened this young one. You have shown us a kind of strength we had forgotten existed. In our drive to remain apex predators, we ignored other forms of power." Tom nodded slowly. "The ability to nurture, to build trust, to lead through respect rather than fear, these are strengths too." "Indeed." The head council member watched as Rose's group completed their station model, all the children celebrating together. "Perhaps it is time for the Razorclaw creche system to evolve. We would learn more of your methods, human caretaker." As the council filed out, already deep in discussion about potential changes, Tom caught Guardian Krall's eye. She nodded once, a gesture of deep respect, before following her leaders. In the play area, oblivious to the momentous decisions being made, Rose continued teaching her friends about the joy of building things together. Word spread quickly through the galactic community: the fierce Razorclaws were changing their ways. Not all at once, and not without resistance, but change was coming. At the heart of this transformation was a small daycare center on Haven's Cross, where Tom Miller found himself with more than just Rose to care for. 3 more Razorclaw youngsters had joined Little Stars within weeks of the council's visit. Their parents, progressive members of their society, had seen the potential in this new approach. But it wasn't just the Razorclaws who were changing, other species were beginning to see humans in a new light. One morning, Tom arrived to find a delegation of Shadowkin waiting outside his door. The mysterious species, known for their ability to phase through solid matter, had always kept to themselves, educating their young in isolation. "We have watched," their leader said, voice like whispered silk. "We have seen how you teach strength through gentleness. Our young ones, they struggle with controlling their phasing abilities. Perhaps they too could learn here." Tom welcomed them warmly, though inside he wondered how he would manage children who could literally walk through walls. But that was the beauty of his approach, finding ways to work with each child's unique nature rather than against it. Rose proved invaluable in helping integrate the new arrivals. Now 6 months into her time at Little Stars, she had developed an remarkable talent for welcoming newcomers. She showed the Shadowkin children how to play solid building games, which helped them practice maintaining physical form. In return, they taught her games involving careful movement and precision, perfect for a young Razorclaw learning to control her strength. Guardian Krall visited regularly, each time with new questions from the council. "They wish to understand," she explained, watching Rose help a Shadowkin child stack blocks without phasing through them. "How do humans create such balance in their young?" Tom thought carefully before answering. "We don't see it as creating balance. We see it as uncovering what's already there. Every child, regardless of species, has the capacity for both strength and gentleness. We just help them find it." The impact extended beyond the children. Species that had been hereditary enemies found their young ones playing together at Little Stars. Parents who would never have interacted began sharing child-rearing tips in the waiting area. The daycare center had become a neutral ground, a place where ancient prejudices began to fade. Even the station's economy felt the effect. Merchants began specializing in multi-species toys and educational materials. The station's engineering team worked with Tom to design new play equipment that could accommodate everything from gaseous beings to silicon-based life forms. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. One morning, Tom found Rose comforting a crying crystalline child. "What happened?" he asked gently. Rose explained how some older Razorclaw children, not part of Little Stars, had teased the young one. "They said we're becoming weak," she said, her golden eyes troubled. "But I showed them how wrong they were. I protected my friend without fighting. Just like you taught us." Tom smiled, pride warming his heart. This, he realized, was the true measure of strength, not the ability to defeat others, but the wisdom to know when not to fight at all. That evening, as he updated his teaching logs, Tom received a message that made his heart skip. The Razorclaw Council had voted to establish the first-ever joint species education center on their homeworld. And they wanted him to help design it. The Razorclaw homeworld of Croth was everything Tom had imagined and more. Massive crystalline spires reached toward the triple suns, their surfaces scarred from centuries of ritual combat. But now, in the heart of their capital city, something new was taking shape, the galaxy's first interspecies youth development center. Tom stood before the partially completed building, Guardian Krall at his side. "It's smaller than our traditional training grounds," she noted, "but perhaps that's fitting. We're learning that bigger isn't always better." The center was designed to accommodate young ones from 20 different species, with Rose's success story as its inspiration. But not everyone welcomed this change. As they toured the facility, a group of traditional Razorclaw warriors watched from the shadows, their disapproval evident in their rigid postures. "Soft methods make soft children," one warrior growled loud enough to be heard. "This human will destroy our future." Before Tom could respond, a commotion erupted from the construction site. A young Shadowkin child, part of a diplomatic family visiting the project, had accidentally phased through a support beam. The structure groaned, threatening to collapse on the workers below. The traditional warriors tensed, ready to charge in and prove the superiority of their ways. But someone else moved first. Rose, who had accompanied Tom as a student ambassador, took charge. "Everyone stay calm," she called out, her voice clear and confident. "Shadowkin child, can you hear me? Remember our games, focus on becoming solid, just like we practiced." The frightened child stabilized, becoming partially solid. Rose quickly organized the nearby workers, both Razorclaw and other species, into a coordinated team. Some supported the wavering structure while others helped guide the Shadowkin child to safety. Not a single claw was raised in anger, not a single threat was made, yet the crisis was resolved efficiently. The watching warriors fell silent. "You see weakness," Tom said quietly to them, "but I see strength. Your people have always valued effective strategy and decisive action. Look at how she handled that crisis, pure Razorclaw efficiency, just channeled differently." One of the younger warriors stepped forward. "The child showed leadership, yes. But she used no force, displayed no dominance. Yet everyone followed her commands without question," Guardian Krall pointed out. "Is that not true dominance? To lead without needing to threaten?" The evening brought more surprises. A delegation of Razorclaw parents arrived at the construction site, their young ones in tow. But these weren't progressives seeking change, they were traditionalists, including some of the warriors from earlier. "We watched," their spokesperson said gruffly. "Our ways have served us well for millennia. But perhaps they can serve us even better with some adaptation. Will you teach us these new methods?" Tom looked at Rose, who was already showing the new children how to play construction games that would develop both their physical skills and their cooperation abilities. In her, he saw the future, not just of the Razorclaws, but of galactic society as a whole. "We'll learn together," he said. "Every species has something to teach and something to learn. That's what makes this project so important." As the first day on Croth drew to a close, Tom received an urgent message from Haven's Cross. Word of the new center had spread, and now representatives from 30 more species were requesting to join the project. The ripples of change were becoming waves. Guardian Crowl read the message over his shoulder and made a sound that might have been a laugh. It seems, human caretaker, that you have started quite the revolution. With kindness as its weapon. 1 year after the Interspecies Youth Development Center opened its doors on Kroth, the galaxy had changed more than anyone could have predicted. The center had grown from its modest beginnings into a sprawling campus, with satellite locations opening on 12 different worlds. But numbers couldn't capture the true scope of the transformation. Tom stood in the central observation dome, watching children from 50 different species playing together in the carefully designed environments below. Among them was Rose, no longer the tiny, uncertain hatchling who had first arrived at Little Stars. Now she served as a junior instructor, helping new arrivals adjust to the integrated learning environment. "Did you ever imagine this?" asked Guardian Crowl, joining him at the window. She had been promoted to head of interspecies relations, a position that hadn't existed a year ago. "When I first brought Rose to your little daycare, did you think it would lead to this?" Tom shook his head, smiling as he watched Rose demonstrate to a group of young ones, including baby Razorclaws, Shadowkin, and even a rare stellar weaver, how to build a stable structure together. Each species contributed their unique abilities, Razorclaw strength, Shadowkin phasing to place internal supports, and the stellar weaver's natural ability to create energy bonds. "The amazing thing," Tom said, "is that it's not just about childcare anymore. Look there." He pointed to another section where adult Razorclaws were learning gentle handling techniques from human instructors. "Your people are discovering that strength can take many forms." The evidence was everywhere. Traditional Razorclaw combat training now included lessons in restraint and precision. Their architectural style, once focused solely on intimidating fortress-like structures, had begun incorporating elements of beauty and welcome. Even their diplomatic corps, previously relying on intimidation, had adopted new approaches. But perhaps the most significant change was happening right now. Today marked the first-ever Galaxy Youth Summit, with young representatives from every known spacefaring species gathering to learn from each other. Rose had been chosen as the keynote speaker. As she stepped onto the presentation platform, Tom felt pride swell in his chest. She had grown so much, yet kept her gentle nature while developing her natural leadership abilities. The audience fell silent as she began to speak. "A year ago, I was considered defective by my own people because I preferred building to fighting," she said, her voice clear and confident. "Today, I stand before you as proof that being different isn't being wrong. Humans taught me that, but more importantly, they taught all of us something about strength." She gestured to the activity areas below. "Look at what we can achieve when we work together. Every species has gifts to share. Humans' gift was showing us that nurturing these gifts in our young ones creates a stronger future than any battle ever could." A small commotion at the back of the hall drew attention. A group of cosmic leviathans, enormous space-dwelling beings who rarely interacted with other species, had arrived. Their representative spoke in a resonating tone that vibrated through the hall. "We have watched. We have learned. We too wish to understand this human way of nurturing the young. Will you teach us?" Tom stepped forward, but Rose beat him to it. "Welcome," she said warmly. "Let us show you how we learn together." Later that evening, as the triple sun set over Kroth, Tom found himself surrounded by his former students, now teachers themselves, from dozens of species. Each had a story about how human childcare methods had changed their lives and their societies. Guardian Crowl approached with news. "The Galactic Council has voted. They want to establish a human childcare academy in every major sector of known space. They're calling it the most significant peace initiative in 10,000 years." 5 years after Rose first stepped into Little Stars daycare, Tom Miller stood before the graduating class of the first human childcare academy on Earth. The auditorium was filled with beings from across the galaxy, future teachers who would carry these methods to the farthest reaches of known space. But today was special for another reason. Rose was returning to Haven's Cross, where it all began, to open her own education center. She had grown into a powerful figure, respected not for her claws or strength, but for her wisdom and ability to bridge worlds. "I remember when this all started," Tom addressed the gathered crowd. One brave mother, seeking a different path for her child. One small daycare on a space station. And now look at us. The statistics were staggering: 200 human childcare academies across the galaxy. 50,000 graduates. Crime rates dropping on worlds that adopted human-style early education. Ancient enemies becoming allies through their shared commitment to nurturing their young. As Tom spoke, a commotion at the back of the hall caught his attention. A group of massive, shadowy figures entered, ancient ones, a species so old and advanced they rarely interacted with younger races. Their presence hushed the room. The lead ancient one spoke, its voice resonating in their minds. "We have watched the great experiment. For eons, we feared the younger races would destroy themselves through conflict. But you humans, you found another way. Not through technology or force, but through teaching gentleness to the fierce, and strength to the gentle." Guardian Kral, now a respected diplomat, stepped forward. "It was not just humans who achieved this. It was all of us, learning together. My daughter Rose showed us the way, but every species contributed to what we've built." As if on cue, the main doors opened. Rose entered, leading a group of children from her new center. They were putting on a demonstration, young ones from predator and prey species, working together to create a complicated mechanical device. A razor-claw child carefully held parts for a tiny cloudling to weld with its energy field, while a shadowkin youngster phased through the structure to make adjustments from within. Tom watched with pride as Rose guided them, her teaching style a perfect blend of human nurturing and razor-claw efficiency. She had taken what she learned and made it her own, creating something even better. The Ancient One gestured to the children. "This is why we have come. We too have young ones, though few. We wish to join your community of learners and teachers. Even we, it seems, have something to learn from humanity's way with children." Looking at the gathered assembly, his former students now teachers, species once thought impossible to integrate working together, and the bright-eyed new graduates ready to spread these methods further, Tom felt the weight of what they'd accomplished. "You know," he said, "people often ask me what makes humans special. Why did our methods work when so many others failed? The answer is simple: we never tried to eliminate the natural traits of any species. We just showed them new ways to use those traits. We didn't try to make razor claws less fierce, we helped them be fierce protectors instead of fierce warriors." Rose stepped forward, standing beside her old teacher. "And you showed us that true strength isn't about who can fight the hardest, but who can build the best future for all our children." As the ceremony concluded, Tom watched Rose leave with her group of students, Razorclaw, Human, Ancient One, and dozens of other species, all learning together. Outside the academy windows, the stars shone brightly, each one potentially holding another world waiting to learn the human way of nurturing the next generation. The galaxy had changed, not through force of arms or technological might, but through the simple, powerful act of teaching children how to be their best selves, whatever form that might take.